Hey, welcome back to another episode of Around Comics, the comic book podcast, where we talk about everything in and around the world of comics. We have got a great show lined up for you guys tonight. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching live, hello. If you're listening to this later on iTunes or one of the other podcast places, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk some comics. We're going to talk some TV. We're going to talk some movies, and we might have a new segment, a new thing for the show that you could play along with us. But before we get to any of that, play along at home. Let me introduce my partner in crime, the other host of the show, the man who wears his heart on his sleeve and bourbon stains on the rest of his shirt, Mr. Christopher Niesman. How are you, friend?
I'm doing wonderful, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
It's fine. I've got my pinky caught in a mask there.
I am
masks all over your house. We have masks everywhere.
Oh, masks. Yeah, they're in my car. Every jacket and hoodie I own has a mask in it. They're everywhere. But now that I'm COVID, now that I've defeated COVID single-handedly, I no longer. No, it's weird. Like I'm like, well, I still have to do everything. You know, I have to wear a mask. I'm not as. I mean, I was very cautious of like not wanting to catch it for the longest time and washing my hands constantly and using hand sanitizer and anytime I touched anything, and obviously wearing a mask, that kind of thing. So I'm a little lax of the hand sanitizer thing now. I'm not as worried about it because I
just have one that is like coconut and pineapple, and it just smells really nice. So I use.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I just use straight alcohol, just straight rubbing alcohol. I just drink it and figure that'll take care of everything. You know?
Drink that bleach, baby.
Drink the bleach, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, you said we have a great show, and it was easy because, my goodness gracious, I picked up some comics, and it was just a great week for me to read comics. I got to go back and finish one of my favorite series of the last like 5-10 years or so. It's always great to see a Hernandez Brothers comic on the shelf, so I got a little Love and Rockets fix. Hey, there's Tom.
Hey, what's up?
There he is.
Spice must flow.
Spice must flow.
You look like you're coming to us from your ice fishing cabin.
Drilling a hole in the ice and
cold in my basement.
Mine too. Mine's a little chilly. My basement is a little cool. I always have to put on some extra thick socks and a hoodie or something.
I built a fermentation station down in my basement, which is not the best place to have a fermentation area because it's like cave temperature down there. It always stays like 55 degrees. So it's going to take me like 3 months to get a batch of sauerkraut to actually ferment.
Is that what you're doing, sauerkraut?
I've actually got some kombucha going and some preserved lemons, some sauerkraut, and some kimchi.
Not to sort of, go off the handle here, but have you watched that show on Netflix? I can't remember.
It's Alive.
I think it's Chef Show or something like that with Jon Favreau.
Oh yeah, it's great.
And that dude that was like started the whole Choi? No, not Choi. What the fuck's his name? Roy Choi. Yeah. It's Favreau and Roy Choi. They went to some restaurant and this place was super impressive. I could not tell you anything about the place. I don't know who it was. I don't know the name of it or anything like that. If you watch the show, you've seen it, but they go to a restaurant like these guys are making like pizza, these two dudes, and they're in this, kind of fancy restaurant, but not really. It doesn't look like that much. And it's just these two guys and they're like making their own dough and they make their own pizza. And it seems like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then all of a sudden they take them to like the basement and it's this huge fucking fortress, of solitude where they're like making their own coffee, growing their own fucking, sauerkraut and pickling everything. They have like a whole staff of people. They have these two people that their whole job is just to grow shit in tubs, nice. Whether it's kombucha, whether it's sauerkraut, and they just like experiment and they're like, oh yeah, this is like 2018. They just have all this shit on this. I'm like, this is fucking wild. This is crazy.
I went to the Publican, did a tour there, and the Publican is a renowned restaurant in Chicago, and across the street they have basically their prepping and staging area and a little like bakery and sandwich shop, but really the whole point of the building across the street from the restaurant is where they do all their prepping, staging, and they have like a full meat locker where they age sausages.
They have like a tunnel underground to
Pretty
go
much.
back.
It's crazy. Yeah. But that kind of level of just like, whoa, okay, you're really into this.
It's an operation. It's My son has become interested in. He seems to have an interest in cooking. Well, he has an interest in eating for sure, but he definitely he seems to have an interest in cooking to some degree. So he watches some of those shows, and I go back and forth with it. Sometimes I'm like, this is stupid. This is anyone can cook. Why? And then sometimes like, okay, that's pretty interesting. That's you know, it's like, but.
If you're interested in like fermentation, that kind of stuff, It's Alive with Brad Leone from Bon Appetit. It's entertaining, and it's also kind of cool to learn about different, making.
All right, enough of that talk. Back to.
I tell you what, we'll dovetail. We
nerds
too. Speaking of Jon Favreau, what did we think about the Osaka Tona episode of Mandalorian?
I mean, she looked amazing. Rosario Dawson was terrific.
How about that opening scene, right?
Very cool. I wasn't as blown away with it as everyone seemed to think it was like the greatest episode ever done or the greatest Star Wars thing ever done. Like, I don't really know who the character is other than I've seen her like once or twice because I wasn't a big Clones or Rebels fan. So
it was a big, giant high five to anyone who has been a Clone Wars or Rebels fan. Yeah.
Honestly, I was more excited about seeing Michael Biehn.
That was cool.
that was more exciting to me. But she was super cool. I mean, she's a badass with those two white lightsabers, and
I mean they make everything look fucking amazing.
Yes,
in that show, like everything looks cool.
Like, very, but not like Snyder cool or like J.J. Abrams cool. Like legitimately like tactile. Sergio Leone. Kind of cool. Like it's like old school.
But also crazy because of how they film it within that sound stage that's a giant screen.
Yeah.
So like I know we've talked about this in the past, but if you haven't watched the Star Wars Gallery episode, the one that most of those are pretty boring, but the one about it's like, who cares? It's like, I don't want it. Whatever. Yeah, you made it cool. Yeah, you made a cool thing. That's it. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know. But the one about how they film it was legitimately super interesting. And
it's such an interesting idea to like try and combine the technology of green screening and CGI with give your actors something to really work with.
And video game engines and parallax camera action and like.
Well, I mean, we're to that point where it's not a small budget, but we're to that point where you can see like big budget style productions for small screen. I guess especially whenever you have the mouse throwing some money behind it.
Yeah, well, the thing was like they built it to meet the budget restraints. Was like, but because Favreau had been doing stuff like that on Lion King or something, where it's like, well, let's put a screen up, we'll have people move, because that never-ending hassle in production of like fucking shadows and light and like reflections and like.
What were you going to say, Tom? Before Chris
jumped on you,
you were saying something about how they shoot it. With the camera or something?
Well, so they use a video game rendering engine, right? So like wherever the camera is pointed, like when in the frame of that camera, the world exists, right? If you're standing in the room and the camera's operating, everything outside the frame might not look like that, but where the camera moves, everything shifts.
It's got a real world.
Yeah, it's like in a video game when your character turns, the world like renders around where the camera is, right? So like they'll have moments where they catch wide shots, but like tight ones, it's just crazy to watch them do it. And like you're watching it like, that's crazy, because it's like you're watching it and you're like, that doesn't look like it makes sense. And then you see like what's in the camera and you're like, yeah, that totally. It's just that window, right? It's just that the space.
That's all they have to change.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's like looks perfect, and like everything kind of shifts as the camera moves, and like it's incredible to watch because they talk. Now I'm just repeating what I saw in it. You should just go watch it.
I'll go watch it.
I
haven't watched it.
Where the executives from Disney thought that they were in some huge, gigantic, expensive set of like the episode with Bill Burr where they're inside the space station.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were doing some remote like talk about the Mandalorian to executives, and they were in the room while the room was on, right? So the set was on. Oh. And everyone was like, "Oh, how much did that set cost?" You know, like people were like astounded at how great the set looked, and it was just the LED screens with like propping, like properly set up, so like you lose the definition of like a crate could be half real and half in the LED screen. That's so crazy. Like it was you know, in my day job, I do lots of filming of stuff. So I was super interested in that because I was sort of like, like that's crazy. You know, and the fact that the Mandalorian, you know, his helmet's a mirror, right? And like if they couldn't do that, they'd spend endless amounts of time using CGI to put reflections on it. But with this, like you get the light. Like it's real.
Actual reflection
of the thing, the scene. The place he's in is actually reflecting off of it. Like he's really there. So they're just talking about how like it's incredible and all the actors love it so much. And just like, you know, you're sitting in a scene and the classic, you know, like you watch how they made like the Phantom Menace and everyone's in this green space. Yeah. But you're in a room and you are really on a raft on a river of lava. You can see the river of lava. You can see the raft, like you're really there. It's like a real set. Like
I can't imagine as an actor, it just has to. Yeah, I mean, you have to be so much more, you know, engaged.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like, and we all see it, and we all know what it looks like, and it's like crazy. It's like the full circle.
Now, did Favreau create that technology? Like, does he have? Is he the new Lucas, where he's just going to be like, okay, well, you can use this, but you're going to have to put.
I think it's
Favreau Ltd. You know,
don't quote me. Well, but I think it was just combining other technologies that already existed in a way that people hadn't really done it yet, and you know, it was kind of what Lucas wanted to do. That was like his ultimate dream. Like Lucas, they have a part where they talk about how George Lucas came down while they were filming. It was like, this is
amazing.
Yeah, like this is the dream. This is what like all that stuff was to get to this point of like, I can just create the set like right here, right now. Give me a half hour and we can render out like a desert. We can render out a space station. And like it was incredible. And it's, you know, watching it, like you were saying, it's not like the Zack Snyder cool. It's not the like the J.J. Abrams cool. It's like a very like tasteful, like
tactile. It's
tactile and real.
You feel the grittiness. You feel the dirt of it. You feel you're there. You can absolutely feel the difference when you're watching it. Of like, it doesn't look fake. It looks like people in a 3D space, in a 4D space, you know, sort of, you know, actually, you know, in that world. And it's like, you can't, I don't know.
I like that episode.
Right with the Mandalorian.
Yeah. I mean, I like that episode a lot. It kind of is too, like a little bit like, if you don't really know who Ahsoka Tano is, like, what does it matter? Other than the fact it was a really cool episode. It was like a great, like harkening back to samurai movie roots of Star Wars. And like,
well, that's, you know, it's funny because I really had that, you know, obviously it's very, you know, especially that last scene with her and and the other woman facing off. It's almost reminiscent of Tarantino, who I'm sure he stole it from some Japanese samurai movie. But it's like, I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, it really is just that simple. Like the Jedi, he just took samurais and went, okay, samurais are really cool. I'm going to give them laser swords
It's genius.
And a little bit of magic, but it's going to be all about that. It's basically just samurais. It's like it's so simple and brilliant and cool.
Yeah.
Like
And they got all the Old West parts in there too. Literally like a standoff in the center of town. But like it's cool, and they don't overcomplicate it, and they don't like.
No, it's old serials. It's old westerns and old serials.
It's like nice, simple.
That was the funny. I saw some comment on a post or something about it, and it was obviously someone younger, and they were like, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was something like, oh, it's really neat to see like oh gosh, what did they, I can't remember what they said, but basically it was sort of like, oh, it's really neat to sort of see them do this stuff that kind of harkens back to the original Star Wars, title scenes. I'm like, well, yeah, those are westerns and samurai and Japanese samurai movies, and it's like that's what it's harkening back to. But it's it's just somebody that's but
cycle.
Yeah, exactly. It's that cycle of cool shit. That cool shit always stays around one way or another.
Yeah,
but I love all the. I mean, it's it's Lone Wolf and Cub, which you know what I mean, which has been redone 100 times in different ways, and it's Sergio Leone movies. It's the the Lone Gunman. Which are all taken from samurai films, so it just makes sense. But
I want more. I want a Osaka series. I want more.
You're not going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it just looks so.
I want more Bo-Katan.
At this point, I think it is maybe my favorite Star Wars thing, maybe ever at this point. I mean, because like
it's fun. It's fun.
I mean, Empire and the original trilogy obviously was game changer, and but to be almost 50 and to sort of enjoy something that it's not a nostalgia thing. Like I'm not enjoying it simply because of nostalgia. It's extremely well done.
You know why I like it more than the last 3 movies is
because it's well written and acted.
It's not a walk down memory lane. It's new.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
Yeah, it's not trying to live up to or incorporate the first 3 movies. I don't need any more Skywalker. I was talking about this with someone else. Like, I don't need any more Skywalker. I don't need anything to do with Darth Vader. I don't need anything to do with anyone in any of those. I mean, if you want to bring something in here and there, like Boba Fett's armor, like they did or whatever, that's fine. But I don't even need that. Like, I don't need any of that shit. Just give me. It's a cool fucking world. Just give me good stories in that world.
In that world, that's all I need. It doesn't have to be tied.
Yep.
Like just slap Star Wars on it and throw an occasional fucking, whether it's a baby Yoda or a fucking, whatever.
Throw some sand people in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like it doesn't need to be that complicated. Just do it well and that's why I like it.
Easter eggs in there to appeal to the original trilogy fans, to the Clone Wars fans.
Fuck the original trilogy fans and what they want, because they're just fucking babies. No, just give me something new. That's why it's good, because it's actually the only thing that's fucking new that Star Wars has done since Jedi. Everything after that has been a fucking rehash.
I liked Rogue One a lot.
Yeah, but it's just a telling of a story. It's just an expansion of a story that you knew about. It's not new. I mean, you knew that story happened. Now they just expanded on it. I liked Rogue One as well. I like Solo as well. But they weren't new stories or new characters. I mean, Rogue One, probably, but even that, it's like it's so tied to the original that it's hamstrung in some ways.
It's so in service to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. I mean, it's interesting because at the same time, I've been reading the graphic novel adaptation of Dune as we get into our weekly Dune discussion.
Dune.
Gotta bring it up every week.
When was that published?
I think it came out fairly recently. Let me see.
Okay, I was going to say, is that new or is that an old? I don't even know.
It's new. Let me see. I think it was this year. I'm trying to. I can no longer keep track of when any. It came out November. It just came out November 24th, 2020.
Oh, okay, so that's a collected. Is that a collected edition of single issues of Dune, or is that
it's just
retelling?
It's a retelling.
Okay.
Now here's the issue, and I looked at Amazon to find out the date. It's the definitive graphic novel adaptation of Dune, and that is the problem. The definitive.
That's the issue right there.
The issue. I really want it. I'm like, I'm halfway through it, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's weird because you're talking about, visual, like, it's obviously a project that's near and dear to someone's heart because it's it's the original author's son is one of the people.
Frank Herbert.
Yeah, his son, who's also written other Dune things. It seems to be sort of the caretaker of the IP. He's obviously worked to adapt this and
make your own money, a bum.
They have a lot of they have some really good artists working at Raoul Allen and Patricia Martin, and they got Bill Sienkiewicz cover to it, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Which the biggest problem with it though is it's too definitive. It's too definitive. It's too
it's not abridged enough.
No, it's like too straight. It's kind of
this is the adaptation of the novel,
not the movie, the novel.
Yeah.
But the thing is like the David Lynch version of Dune is a befuddling movie that's super confusing, not a good movie, but it had
all David Lynch movies.
But it had a lot of style to it, and it looked weird and it looked like alien, and this book is sort of too plain Jane for me. It's almost like the did you guys ever see the sci-fi channel miniseries?
Yeah.
Where it's just oh, that's what these guys all look like. They just kind of look like the Lynch version is confusing, but at least it's this kind of looks. It had a lot of visual interest.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, oh,
I keep wanting to like Dune because it's so visually interesting.
Yeah.
And captivating.
Yeah, but it makes no sense.
Yeah, the story is I don't know what is,
and maybe it's unfair because Lynch obviously took visual liberties with representing things, but I think part of my problem with why this I'm not going to finish this is that it just isn't as visually interesting as the Lynch version, or the characters don't look interesting. It's just a very straight sci-fi rendering of it, right? Where the characters just kind of look like I'm a guy in a robe and this is another guy in a robe, and it's just too down the middle. It's the Bill Sienkiewicz cover got me too excited. Where I was and it's nothing against the artists. I think they're good artists. I mean, I think the goal of the book, at least from the introduction, is this is the definitive Dune, and I think
setting it up for greatness.
Setting it up to be this is the vision, of the way it is, and it's straight down the middle, almost too much, right? Where it's
does anybody mind fuck you more than Sienkiewicz when he does a cover and it's oh yeah, this book is going to be awesome, and then it's no, the rest of it is not Sienkiewicz. It's
not as good. I was oh, okay, this could be kind of interesting. I was kind of expecting something with a lot of style to it, a lot of visual. If any adaptation deserved a Jonathan Hickman, let's design the shit out of this book to get you a bunch of information, it would be Dune. It's Dune, but
Now you've read the Dune novel, correct?
Oh yeah.
Did you like the novel?
Yeah, it's a good novel. I mean, I think that always the challenge with it is that it's not action based. It's not like there's action within it, but like it's a lot of palace intrigue and like people discussing things like
Game of Thrones in the
a
desert?
little bit, yeah.
Sand.
Where you can kind of see it in the Lynch version where it struggles a little bit of like, well, what's happening? Like other than like people explaining what's already happened, and then like I like the books a lot, and I find them really intriguing, and they have a lot of style to the way they're written, right? And they originally came out as a serialized version of the story, right, in magazine form.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah. So like it harkens back to that sort of like serialized version of the story, and it has style to it. But I can see why it's a challenge to adapt. People want it to be like a sci-fi movie, right? But like it ardently is like space sucks, and when you travel through space, nothing cool happens. And like like in the way it's sort of bold in that sort of like defies science fiction in that sort of way. It's like actually no, there are not going to be any computers. Computers are outlawed, like right. So like all of a sudden you're like kind of
can't
like,
go into the desert because there's giant worms.
But like the the way they treat space travel, so utterly uninteresting to watch. You get inside a big ship, and then this thing folds space, and then you're at the place you're at. It's like not cool at all.
Yeah,
I think I've only watched them. I've never read the books, but I may now go back and read them. But I've only watched the movie, I think, fully once, and I don't remember much of it. The only thing I always remember that weird like armor fight where they like have the force field,
yeah,
like blocky force field armor. I'm like, that was one of the coolest because it wasn't like it seemed like kind of fucked up technology. Like it didn't quite work properly, but it worked enough to like murder someone, but it was sloppy and like janky. And I was like, that was like one of the more interesting things from that movie. And I think that, like those are some of the things in that movie. Like you said, Lynch was able to sort of just visually show you some stuff that, while the rest of the movie is like kind of almost anti-sci-fi, like in the way that he was able to sort of visually do some things like, wow, this is really mind-blowing. Like there's some really cool stuff to see, but it's just too bad. I'm interested to see like because they're doing it again, right? They're doing another
series.
No, another movie. The Denis Villeneuve.
Okay.
He did Blade Runner 2049.
Okay. I really like that. So
and it was going to come out now, I think, but COVID, it's been delayed. So yeah, I'm interested to see. I think it's a challenging story to. I think it in a way is like kind of anti what we think a big epic sci-fi story is. Like there's not going to be a space fight. There's not going to, like it's mostly spies, and like you're not going to get like your sort of like your same heroic end of Star Wars where they blow up the space station. Like you get your end, but it's not going to be the
end that you
feel good end that you want.
The most entertained I've ever been with Dune was actually the documentary about the Dune movie that never happened.
Dune, yeah.
It's fascinating if you ever have a chance to see. Have you seen that, Sal?
I don't believe I have. No.
Are you a Jodorowsky fan? His comic stuff?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read a bit of it, not a ton of it.
Yeah.
But
well, he directed a lot of movies, and was seriously gonna do Dune, and he was gonna have Salvador Dali. He wanted to have Salvador Dali in it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like,
yeah, it's
have you seen There's a short documentary out there. It's when Alice Cooper met Salvador Dali.
Oh,
it's really strange. Obviously it's
obviously,
yeah, but it's even the way that it's done is because it's done like a movie, but it's a kind of a documentary, and there's a guy playing Alice Cooper and a guy playing Salvador Dali. It's really weird. It's very odd, but that came out. I was a huge Alice Cooper fan, but
no,
anything with Salvador Dali, I think you're gonna get weird shit for sure. Like that dude was just Neil Johnson said Dune needed a Death Star. I think that was the problem, Neil. I think you were right.
Giant worms, right?
I don't know. I'm gonna order. Well, they have on the Kindle. They have all 6 books I can get for like $60.
I would just get the first one and see
if I like the first one.
Yeah.
All right. I need something. I'm currently reading like 2 really old books, so I need something not as old. I mean, I'm like reading like Victorian era. Well, I'm reading Dracula, and then I'm reading like a 1930s book. So I need something a little more.
If you want some modern, just like popcorn fiction stuff, I'm almost done with the last Dresden Files book. I don't know if you're a Harry.
Those books are terrible.
Those
are awful. Those are awful.
I listen to them. They work better for me as audiobooks. So it's about as much as I want to dedicate thought process to while I'm driving. So, and it's Spike from Buffy is the voice actor in all of them.
I can only listen to like nonfiction.
Really?
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to listen to fiction. I've tried it and I don't enjoy it because I don't have the same. My mind doesn't conjure up the same imagery. Listening to something
as it does
when I'm reading, and I really enjoy that part of reading. Yeah. But nonfiction, I love listening to stuff nonfiction because it's like, I don't
really like Dresden Files books that much, huh?
They were just, I read the first one and it did nothing for me. It just wasn't interesting to me. That dude, the guy that played Spike from Buffy is perfect because it's basically like Buffy. It is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's the level of
sure.
If I'm going to spend the time reading something, I want it to be a little more than Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Sometimes I need Buffy.
Yeah, I just turn on TV if I need like,
Once again, hour and a half each way to work. And
I don't have that.
3-hour commute for work. So
no, fuck that noise.
Yeah.
Why don't you just live here? You could drive an hour and a half. I think you were closer to Janesville from Chicago than you were from where you are now.
I may have been. So
have you guys watched? There's a show. We'll get back to comics. I just wanted to ask: have you guys watched? There's a show. I think it was a CBS show or a network show, but it's on Netflix. At least the first season, I think, is on Netflix, and it's called Evil, and it stars the guy who played Luke Cage in the Netflix series.
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, who's great. He's a man who is had a kind of a not a rough life, but a troubled past, and now he has found God and he is studying to be a priest. But he works for the Catholic Church, investigating mostly like demon possessions and potential exorcisms to try and determine whether or not they're real or fake. And he has Asif Manvi from The Daily Show, who was great. He's like his tech guy, and he's a skeptic. And then he hires this woman who I don't know who she is. She looks familiar, but I'm not sure who the actress is. But she plays a psychiatrist that he hires to be like his Scully. You know what I mean? Because she's a non-believer. She's a lapsed Catholic. She's an atheist now. And it's kind of an interesting show. It has a certain amount of sort of Catholicism built into it, obviously, but not, it doesn't really lean on that too hard or anything, but it's kind of an interesting show. And you end up like following it, and like there's these 66 or 60 demons on Earth that sort of just are constantly pushing evil. And it can be anything from like a lone gunman to like a YouTuber who, like puts a subliminal message in one of their videos to get kids to fucking, kill themselves, shit like that. It's kind of an interesting show that I've started to watch, and I don't know, it's actually pretty good. You guys might dig it. I mean, it's not, it's not like some great, it's not great or anything, but it's kind of interesting. I like how they're it's an X-Files kind of vibe to it to some degree. And I love that dude that played Luke Cage. I don't know the actor's name, but he was so great as Luke Cage, and he plays a little different character in this, but it's good to see him working.
That's cool. I did see on the old internets that people were really wanting Disney to pick up Daredevil and produce it again. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Well, yeah, because Marvel got the rights back.
They got the rights back.
So they have it, so they could. And the cast, I know, is interested in it, and there's a fan base. I mean, it was a really good show, I thought. I mean, it was certainly my favorite of those shows that they did. Well, Punisher was really good too, but Power Man, actually, I thought they were all good, other than Iron Fist kind of sucked.
Iron Fist is Mike Coulter, by the way.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he's really good. He's very likable in this. He plays a different kind of character. He's a little more vulnerable and not as not quite a badass. The badass that he is, obviously, in Luke Cage.
He's not bulletproof.
No, he's not bulletproof. It's an interesting show. The only thing about it is like, I don't know. There's this weird there's this weird part where like they basically one of the demons sort of is mentoring a young guy, trying to turn him into a shooter, like a incel shooter to go like shoot up a women's fitness center.
Okay.
But it's all based on like this guy getting turned down for a single date, and it's like, all right, that's a little simplistic. I think that's a little like you're gonna take a kid that's like one kind of nerdy kid that gets turned, he gets turned down for a date at a Starbucks, basically from a barista, and the next thing you know, you're like able to twist him into a shooter. It's like that seems a little. I don't know. I don't know if that, and I keep saying like that seems to be like a common, like people want to believe like these people are just easily manipulated into going out and murdering people with a rifle. It's like I don't know that it's necessarily like manipulation on anyone's part. I think it's more just mental health issues. I think we got to be a little. That's the only thing with the show. It's interesting because it skirts the line of like. It talks about mental health. It talks about religion and fanaticism and different things, and it kind of deals with a lot of topical issues. But because it's a TV show, it's very simplistic in its views a lot of times, and that's the only thing about it. I'm like, I get a little like, cringy at times with it, but I've really enjoyed it. I've really liked watching it for a.
Ripped from the headlines.
Yes, it is very, very much. All right, Chris, what were you talking about? You said you had such a great week of comics. What comics did you read that you were so in love with this week?
Jazz.
What struck me is that it was a really good week for some of my favorite cartoonists. And using the term cartoonist as
let me get my fancy outfit on.
We're talking and I'll start. It's I actually can't find this issue. It's around here somewhere, but I've got the free comic book day issue of Usagi Yojimbo. #1 came out last week. I got to sneeze. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. Stan Sakai is just so. I sneezed into my elbow. Don't look at me like that. Stan Sakai is just such a good storyteller and such a fun cartoonist. I don't know if you've ever read any of the Usagi Yojimbo stuff, but really fun. Just great cartooning. I enjoyed that. Next, and I think I told Sal that anytime there's 11 Rockets issue that hits the stands, and this is number 9 out of this volume, which I think is volume 4. The stories are always these great slice of life, but then they will get, Jaime will do some fun sci-fi stuff, but 11 Rockets is just always just so damn beautiful to look at when it comes out, and I love both of them, Gilbert and Jaime. What?
Nothing. I'm just messing around.
Huh?
Me and Tom are just messing around behind you.
What did you read this week?
Do you love both of them equally?
Is it Jaime or Jamie?
It's Jaime Hernandez.
Jaime.
Which one's your favorite?
Which one of the two is your favorite?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, other Hernandez brother.
Sorry.
I mean, right there with Darwin Cook is being one of my probably top 2 or 3. They're definitely my top 3.
Now, why do you call him a cartoonist?
I
can understand Sakai. His work is much more visually.
It kind of goes back to a conversation we had with Andy Parks years ago, when he said that was, paraphrasing, that was basically like the biggest compliment that you could pay someone, as if they were a really good cartoonist. It's just a great understanding of the medium and the visual language of cartooning, and that's what I felt. It's always especially with Jaime Hernandez. It is some of the panels that he is able to put together, and just the progression of emotional storytelling from panel to panel is so engaging, and how he's able to just with the few strokes of a pen completely change the emotions of a character. It's I don't know, it's masterful is the way I look at it, is that it's so simple but has so much impact in what he does as a cartoonist.
One of these days I have to actually read a giant chunk of Love and Rockets. I've read some of it, but I don't know. It's never really captured me that much for whatever reason.
It can be certainly really soap opera-y, and that I think it can drag, especially if you start reading at issue 1. I mean, it took a while for. I mean, you could see the roots of where they were as artists, and I think that Gilbert was probably ahead of Jaime as a storyteller early on, because he was telling these kind of down homey Palomar stories and little Mexican village, little Mexican town stories, and Jaime was kind of doing these sci-fi, kind of crazy sci-fi stuff, and it kind of changed whenever they got into the Maggie and the mechanic stuff. Yeah, they're kind of down homey stories. I love them really, as more than anything, for just how visually beautiful they are. I just love especially Jaime's work. So it's always a worthwhile pickup for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You hear that, Gilbert?
I mean, it's 40.
Better pick up your game, Gilbert.
Number 2, your brother passed you.
But wait, yeah, Love and Rockets has been going on 40 years of it being produced.
Impressive.
And this was the last one that I was super excited. I've been waiting for a year for this.
Paper Girls.
I read the first trade, and then I saw that the deluxe edition was coming out. I was like, oh, you know what? This is something I'm going to want to reread, because it's Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang, which I adore both of them. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be something that I'm going to want to put on the shelf and go back and read. So I have waited for the deluxe hardcover editions, and finally the third and final volume came out this last week, and I sat down and read it basically in one night, and it was almost shed a little tear there at the end. Got kind of like right here.
Chris with this giant hardcover, tears falling into it.
It is. I mean, there's no other book that has made me feel as much like a 12-year-old girl as Paper Girls. I'm like, yeah, boys do suck.
It's true.
I love that series. It was so good. I enjoyed, and man, Cliff Chang is so good. There was one issue in this, and it was one of the things I wanted to point out is that I'm reading the deluxe editions, but they wrote for the single issue as a continuing series. There's one issue in there that it's basically 4 panels per page, and so they're telling 4 stories in the same order each page. So it's top. I'll forget it, but it's each panel is telling a different story from one of the 4 different girls. And every page you get one panel of the story, but they actually kind of meet and mix together. And
simultaneous storytelling.
It's really, really a great use of the medium. And I guess you could probably do that, in film or whatever. But to see it in the comic medium was really. It was something I hadn't seen quite like that before. It was really, really cool.
It was so long ago since I finished that. I don't remember it enough. I remember really enjoying it. I remember it was weird. Like I tore through the first trade, and I think Brian K. Vaughan is such a good, he writes really good hooks.
Mm-hmm.
He will really get you early. He knows how to set up a story properly. He knows how to set the hooks in and get you to really, sort of, you like the characters right away. And then, it's he kind of tells you where they're at, what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, he throws this big spin into it. And that was one of the things I remember of that book was every time I kind of thought I knew where it was going, it would turn a corner and be like, oh wait, no, that's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. You're literally
really interesting
away from where you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, almost to its detriment. It almost got away from me to a certain point because I remember I had read the first 3 trades, I think, and I think there's 4?
I think 6.
6 trades. Okay, so I think I read the first 3, and I stopped reading it because it kept doing that. It kept changing what it was, and I'm just okay, I'm losing track of what's going on here. And I went back twice and got to the same point the second time, and I stopped, and I'm okay, when it finally was out, whatever 6 or 7 trades that are on, they're all on Hoopla, and I'm okay, I'm gonna sit down and read it all again and read the entire thing, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. It was really good. It's very, it's one of those, if you like Stranger Things, if you like, It, if you like those, the sort of, tween age kids in the 80s. I mean, this is right in that vein of stuff.
Well, that's actually one of the things I liked about it is that the story starts in 1988, and spoilers, it's a time travel story. And so, but it doesn't lean on that 1980s crutch. That's not the focal point, is that this is an 80s nostalgia book. It's a story that's where it starts, which that's kind of one of the things I liked about it. Where Stranger Things, it's they kind of lean into that pretty hard.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So do I. I lean into the 80s nostalgia. I was going to show you guys this. I just bought this. This is not what it looks like at all, but it looks very much like a tape deck.
Huh.
I bought a tape deck, but it's actually a 16,000 watt Wi-Fi battery, backup battery.
Oh.
And all the buttons actually work and the sliders work. And the only thing that doesn't do is doesn't open. I wish I wish they would have made it so that it actually like the top, even if you can't put a cassette in it, like if the top open, it would be absolutely perfect. But I saw it and I'm just like, I have to have that. I don't even know if I'll use it or not. But I'm so firmly entrenched in my 80s nostalgia as a middle-aged man now that I have to, when I see something that retro, I have to get it now.
It strikes you. You're like,
I've given up. I at one point I fought it, and now it's like, no, I'm absolutely. I didn't even like the 80s. Like I was more of a punk, like anti-establishment. I hated the 80s when I was living in it. You know, it's like the popular music sucked, popular fashion sucked, everything about the 80s sucked to me when I was going through it. And now it's like the cheesiest 80s pop song comes on the radio and I smile. Like I've completely gone, 180 degrees on that one. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, Tom. I'm an old man.
It's all right.
Yeah.
You just just lean into it.
I am. I'm totally leaning into it. Fuck it.
Yeah, who cares?
Speaking of retro, new age retro books or retro stuff, I read a bunch of comics this week that I enjoyed as well. I'll start off with Rorschach number 2.
Oh yeah,
which I really liked more than I liked the first issue.
Yeah.
I thought it started to really formulate its own story to the point where I'm like, I don't even care if this is Watchmen or not. You know what I mean? Like I started to sort of just think of it as its own thing, and I'm interested in this story. It's like I don't really even care.
Well, yeah, I think it's kind of like the TV show, which it's in that universe. It's like it's in the Watchmen universe. But like, the story isn't necessarily like tied tight to it in the second.
Right.
It's like it just takes place in that world, And sure, he wears a Rorschach costume, but like, it's definitely not like a like what happened to the original Rorschach.
It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't really have much to do with the original cast other than the fact that this guy seems to have some fascination with Rorschach. But other than that, it's just these characters are in that same world and dealing with... Oh, they don't even really deal... I mean, they don't really talk about like sort of dealing with the universe after the fact, after Ozymandias's alien... I mean, that's not really even brought up or anything in this, it's just sort of... It is what it is in the world, but we talked obviously with Zach Crucy last week about Ditko and all the Ditko sort of analogies in this, and how he's obviously sort of playing with that, which is really kind of interesting. I think that's if we talked about Tom is a ambitious writer. He doesn't write small, even if he writes a small story, what he's trying to accomplish in it is usually ambitious. And that's why I like him as a writer, because generally his stories, whether they work or not, he's trying to do something that most writers don't do, whether it's emotionally trying to say something or, look at a character from a different perspective or connect with a character in a different way. He's always attempting to do that.
Writer at all.
He is not a formula writer, and he doesn't seem to really care like with the conventions of comics and the idea of like, as good as a lot of I think modern comic book writers are. It's like if you go, okay, write a Batman story. Most of them are going to just sort of go, okay, well, what kind of villain can I use? Which one of the rogues gallery can I use? And what characters can I have pop up? And who can I play with? Even Scott Snyder has been writing Batman for a while now, and he's always just sort of playing in the same sandbox. Where Tom, I feel like he kind of goes, okay, I'm gonna write in this universe. I'm gonna write these characters, or I'm gonna play in this sandbox, but I'm really gonna bring some different tools to it. bring some different things that I just don't think other writers do. And I really feel that in this is like, I was very skeptical going into issue 1 of this. And now I'm like, okay, after the second issue, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see what he's doing. I think I can kind of feel it a little bit. It really is its own creature. And even though he's, it's almost like he's like Watchmen was very, meta in its own way. It was very deconstructionist of comics. And he's sort of now doing that to Watchmen. Like playing with Ditko, playing with the idea that this character is a Ditko analogy. I feel like he's even going a little bit further. You know what I mean? Like he's playing with the history of comic book creators in a lot of ways, as opposed to the history of comics. You know what I mean? So it's almost so I really, whether or not it works in the end, I applaud him once again for like being ambitious in that regard and not just sort of like, I mean, I read all the before Watchmen stories and I think some of them are pretty good stories, but they're all very conventional comic book stories. None of them are really, it's just like, okay, I'm going to tell a story about the comedian before he was the comedian, or I'm going to tell a story about, Dollar Bill or whatever it might be, whatever character someone chose to write about in those stories. They're all very kind of typical comic book stories, where this is not a typical comic book story. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you're going to see this in many form. Like how many DC comics are you going to see like this? You know what I mean? That are written like this. Not a whole lot. Not very many, I don't think. So, like I said, whether or not it ends up after, 12 issues or however many issues it is, whether it's a great story or not, you got to give them credit for really trying something different with a known quantity or commodity, I should say. So that was a really good book.
I have no idea where it's going.
Yeah, I don't really either. I mean, I'm not pretending to say I know where it's going at all, and I don't really care.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, and I mean, usually I don't really think about it that much. I don't really like try and figure out a mystery to a story that I'm reading. I let the writer tell me the story, like I don't need to solve a mystery before. I know that's like a lot of people read mysteries for that reason. Like that's why mysteries are very popular, is because writers will usually give it away before the end, but they do it on purpose because they want the reader to think that they solved it. I mean, that's, very, very much a mainstay of mystery comics, or mystery stories, I should say, is that the popularity is in part because readers want to feel like the detective and feel like they figure it out before the end. And I don't, that's not why I like, mysteries necessarily. I don't really care to try and figure them out. Just tell me the story. And yeah, it's pretty good. But so that was one I read. Scumbag number 2.
Oh, that came out?
That came out last Wednesday. Interestingly enough, this issue's got a different artist. Andrew Robinson. Yeah, Andrew Robinson is the artist on the second issue. No, it works though. I know it was weird, but it actually, I mean, it Andrew Robinson I like even more, honestly. But I have to say I was a little disappointed with the issue itself. While it looks great and it's well done, it sort of felt like a pause. Like you had the first issue, you set up the story, you set up the idea, okay, this guy's got to go save the universe. And then this entire issue is sort of what I expected it to be, was like, okay, now we're going to see this guy go fuck up trying to save the universe. And it's like, no, they're still trying to convince him to save the universe, or he's still just like fucking off in a bar.
Oh, he is.
And he is a scumbag. I get that. And a lot of it is also sort of like, exposition about like the bad guys and what's going on, behind the scenes and sort of that kind of thing. But it was just sort of a disappointment because I was so excited with the first issue of like, okay, now I really want to see this guy get into some fucking trouble. And he does eventually, as the issue unfolds, he does eventually get into some of that, but it just felt a little bit like a filler issue to some degree. And I was just a little disappointed after the first issue is so sort of red hot and well done. I was really just like wanting to be, I wanted this to kill. I wanted the second issue to be the same thing, and it just a little bit of a letdown. So, but it was still really good, and I'm gonna pick up the next issue for sure because I want to see where it goes. But it was just sort of, I was hoping for a bit more adventures of Scumbag, But there is a really funny scene involving a Scorpion's patch on Scumbag's jean vest. So I'll leave it at that, but it is pretty funny. There's a good, and then Department of Truth. I've been reading this like every week. I've been talking about this book. I really like this book. I think James Tynion is like on the verge of becoming like a superstar writer. And this is a really interesting book so far. The first two issues have been really good. And then once again, this issue, I was not that I was disappointed, but it had such a different tone to it. I would say I would warn anyone before reading this issue. It deals with basically the whole issue is about school shootings and the fact that a person like Alex Jones would attack the parents of a child that was murdered at Sandy Hook, which he did do. They don't name Alex Jones by name in this, but it's obviously well, actually, funny enough, visually, this is the first page of the book, and the dialogue is obviously talking about Alex Jones, but to me that looks like Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know, but like they're talking. I mean, the whole issue deals with like a woman who lost a child in a shooting, and then in a school shooting, very reminiscent of Sandy Hook, and then a TV personality attacks her and gets her gets his fans to believe that she's an actress and that they faked it to take what Alex Jones did. It's really dark. Because it's from the perspective of the woman, the mother, and it was a bit of a shock because the first two issues were much more fiction, to use a word. They didn't, they dealt with reality, but it was like it seemed more historical stuff, like the Kennedy assassination. This one is obviously something pulled out of today's headlines and a really, really horrible fucking thing, that a scumbag like Alex Jones would fucking harass a parent of someone whose kid was fucking shot. I don't know you can get much fucking lower than that. And so this is, like I said, this issue was just it was heartbreaking to kind of read because you're obviously you're thinking about real people when you're reading it, and the way that they use it is also, incredibly sad because it's like the character eventually sees so much of this sort of misinformation, and the way the universe in this book works is that the more people believe something, the more real it is. So eventually she actually starts to believe that she was an actress and that it was a fake and that her son is still alive. So it's really, it's
very dark.
it's very fun. That's what I mean. Like the first two issues were kind of dark, but not, like I said, much more fictional. Where this is like, holy fuck! Like it was a slap in the face of reading a comic.
Everything we're dealing with now.
Yeah, and so the tone of the book changed. I felt like dramatically in this third issue, just like, whoa, holy shit! It's extremely well done. And I definitely want to read the next issue, but it was it's almost like sort of like a warning of like, this is a fucking dark book. Like this is something that, the sort of, if you're, triggered by something like this, it's, I mean, those ideas and the idea of, just the idea of like a parent losing their child in a school shooting as a parent of two. I mean, I spent plenty of days sitting at work, like every time there was a shooting, like thinking about, one, just like, thank God it wasn't at one of my kids' schools, and two, well, is the next one gonna be? Thinking about that, but then like imagining that happening, and then people online believing like you're lying about it, and like attacking you and harassing you because they think you're fake and that your child because it's like, I can't even imagine the amount of fucking anger I would possibly have at those people. Like the amount of fucking, aggression and anger that I would have at someone like that. And yeah, so it's a really fucking, but there's not many comics that I read that I have that sort of reaction to, at this point in my life. Like it certainly created a reaction in me. And it's very good. The 3 issues of it so far that are out, I've enjoyed every issue of it.
Issue 1.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good. But like I said, because I've been talking about it so much, it's almost like I want to give a warning about this issue. Like this, if you pick it up, just be aware. It's dark. It's a dark book. Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been reading this week. That kind of fun stuff, lighthearted, fun.
Some escapist entertainment.
Yeah. Oh, wait, actually, one more. Talking about time travel, I did read. Did you guys read Colonel Weird?
I haven't read it yet.
This is issue 1, but issue 2 did come out.
I got issue 2. I have not read it yet.
It's I love all the Black Hammer stuff, and the fact that now he can kind of delve in deeper on some of these characters and give us even more information is really interesting. And Colonel Weird's one of my favorite characters from the book, because he's just such a strange, it's such a great concept of like this guy's sort of trapped in time. And I gotta say, like, the first issue I didn't love it, but the second issue I really, really liked, because it kind of drove home the idea of like, this guy has experienced his entire life all at the same time. And how would that, like, a big chunk of this story is told when he's a kid. And it's like, how fucked up would that make you as a kid? Like seeing moments of your life from the future and not really understanding that at all, and making you weird, to other kids, because you're like, one moment you're standing there with your, in your house as a 8-year-old, and the next thing you know, you're in bed with your wife talking about a space launch, and like, how would that, how much would that fuck you up? And that's like Colonel Weird. Like he's kind of this tragic character, because he sees forward and backward in time. He sees his entire existence sort of all at the same time, but he doesn't really have any control over it. It just sort of happens, and sometimes it happens to help him out and help out his teammates and put him in advantageous situations, but sometimes it just fucks with his head. A lot of times, more often than not, it just kind of fucks with his head. And this issue really kind of drove that home for me, and really, really made that distinction about that character, and it really made him that much more of an interesting character to me, that he's dealing with this, like he's, and I kind of always knew that, reading the original book and everything, but it's like seeing him as a kid, especially having to deal with that, is like, oh wow, that would really fuck with your head a lot, like that would mess with you. That would make life very difficult if you were like, uncontrollably seeing flashes in the future and not understanding it at all. So yeah, really, really good. Like Jeff Lemire's, we've talked about him since forever, but he's a really good comic book writer. He's just never seemingly out of interesting ideas, to play with, and takes sometimes it takes me a little bit to get what he's trying to do with some of his books, because sometimes they almost seem too simple. But then inevitably there's like a deeper thing there. You know what I mean? And
it's almost like a Grant Wood painting, It's
well, I have to be patient, because if I just sort of rush through it like it's any other comic, then I don't feel like I'm gonna really grasp it. So I have to really kind of like
slow your roll.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, man. It was a good week of comics.
Take your time.
Take it easy, man. Go with the flow. All right. Do we want to go into our? We talked about having a little game, like not a game, but like a little new segment to the show. Do we want to do that this week? Yeah. Do you guys have a random box of comics all right, so for those listening and watching, what our idea, I had the idea today of just like digging into a random box of back issues and pulling out an issue every week and then reading it and just, and we all pull a different one, obviously, because otherwise it'd just be too hard to coordinate. But like each of us read just an issue from our long boxes. No idea what it could be. Just pull out a single issue, and then next week we talk about those single issues. I don't know what to call this, like deep dives or something. We could call it.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Trip over the dehumidifier in the basement to get to your long boxes.
I think deep dives works. I think we can stick with deep dives.
Move that crate out of the way.
What'd you say, Tom?
I'll have to start next week. I gotta.
Oh, you don't have a box along. No. All right. Well, we can do it. We can start next week.
They're readily accessible.
No problem. Well, right. It
would just be.
We'll plan on it for next week. Then we'll start it next week.
I'll snag one tonight and read it.
Oh, okay. You want to do that?
Yeah. I think
so. Cool. Should I dive into my long box then? All right. It's a short box actually. It's not a long box, but I have no idea. I have not looked in this box in multiple years. I have no idea what's in it. I'm not gonna look. I'm gonna open it up here and I'm gonna reach in and I got Mage.
Yeah.
The Hero Discovered issue 7. I don't know when this is from Comico. This is by Matt Wagner, obviously.
Kamiko. Was it Comico or Kamiko? Is it Comico?
I always said Comico, but I don't know. Kamiko.
No one ever said it out loud.
That's my deep dive. So I'll talk about that. I didn't even know what was
actually. Wait, I might have a box.
Oh, see, Tom can't not be part of the fun.
Chris, you do it. It'll take me a minute here.
Okay. So I see. I misunderstood the game. I pre-picked mine.
No pre-picking.
Well,
no pre-picking. You gotta get a box right now, and because you could have set yourself up with some cool issue. No pre-picking. Checkmate number what?
Number 24. It is part 2 of Castling Cobra's Nest.
All right, you wouldn't have picked that. I would not have picked that.
It was
all right.
Right in the middle of a storyline.
Yeah, I know. Maybe there's a flaw in this, but that's going to be interesting too. Of like,
well, and it's also the fact that there's going to be issues down there that I haven't read in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, I haven't read this probably in 20 years. Yeah. I mean, probably when it first came out is when I
Yeah, I know it's shocking that I picked a Greg Rucka book.
Of course,
by accident. But,
by accident,
the odds are high.
Did you get something, Tom? Hey, Shazam!
Number 6.
Yeah. Very nice. All right, so there we go. There's our new game, and you can play at home if you'd like to play at home. Just find a random box of comics, stick your hand in blindfolded, and pull it out, and then read it and tell us what you got. Send us an email or send us a voicemail. You could. I don't know how you do that, but you could do it. I'm sure you can figure it out. And then we're gonna talk about these random comics next week.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah, we'll just do it every
Now I understand the game now.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, you know,
next week I'll have to go downstairs into the basement and do that. So
yeah, just grab a box and bring it up and leave it under your desk, and then we can keep. Like I said, I have no idea what else is in this box. It could all be Mage. I might pick a Mage issue because I have the entire run, so it could be. I'm sure there's.
For me, it's gonna be like a cooking show. I'm gonna pick one before the show, and I'm just gonna put it under my desk, and I'll be like, "Oh, look what I got!" So
see, you got to do it live, man.
I've just ruined the magic, didn't I?
You have.
You know, whenever they pull that stuff out of they always have another one in the oven that
of course. What is that, Shazam? What era is that from?
This is like the DC like relaunch. Like
okay.
Yeah.
Not the faucet stuff.
No. This is from like 73.
Okay. Well, Neil Johnson is playing along with us. He said he grabbed Multiversity Pax Americana Director's Cut. That's a pretty good issue to pull.
Some good ads in this one. We got
good ads.
The day Bill told off his boss.
Oh,
I remember that one. Yeah.
Cleveland Institute of Electronics.
I don't even know let's see, when was this published? Hey, this is in pretty good shape. It's got a crease in the front. This was published May of 1983. Kamiko Company, DeKalb, Norristown, Pennsylvania. It's got a foreword by Matt Wagner. Oh, it's got a recap, so I'll know where I'm at.
There you go.
At least in this issue.
So,
oh, I got a Robotech ad. Check out Robotech.
Ooh,
yeah.
I gotta know, Sal. Are you still on the Assassin's Creed Valhalla? You enjoying?
Yeah, I'm. Well, because I had COVID and I had nowhere to go or nothing to do. I've played about 47 hours.
Wow.
I've played a lot of it.
Okay. So it's enough to keep your interest for at least a solid work week.
Well, at one point, like, it was interesting. Like, I'm running around the game and I'm just sort of like hunting something, and I see something in the distance, and it looks like a building is glitching. So it looks like a glitch. Oh, Tom had to go. I guess Tom had to leave. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? So I run over there, and it's actually part of the game. But it looked like a mistake. It looked like a glitch. And I'm like, okay, so I start seeing a couple of them, and then it ends up like leading me on a completely different adventure. And I take mushrooms, and I end up in Asgard. And so at one point you are in Asgard fighting frost giants and like dire wolves.
Summer was the Rainbow Bridge or something.
Oh, you got the Rainbow Bridge. You got You're basically Odin. You but you're still you. Like, you don't have Odin's powers or anything. So it's very odd. It's like, oh wow, this is a completely different kind of game now. So it's definitely kept my interest. I go back to it every once in a while. I don't play it like every day or anything. I was for a while, but like
Tom said his laptop died.
Oh, Tom's laptop. So bye, Tom. Good night, Tom.
Are you PlayStation Plus member? Do you do that, the online?
I think so.
Okay, it's this month. Actually, you may want to hurry. I don't know if you're interested or whatnot. I had not played Middle Earth. What was the Shadow of whatever it was?
Mordor?
Huh?
Shadow of Mordor?
Shadow of Mordor. I had not played that, but Middle Earth Shadow of War is the free game of the month now.
Okay. I think I played the first one, but I didn't really like it that much. I think I returned it, actually.
I'm on the fence. Unfortunately, I've got about 10 hours in it at this point. It's getting better, but it seems a little repetitive. And it's just like go into an orc camp, kill some orcs, find some.
See, that's the only thing I get too tired of that shit. Like, it's the only thing with Valhalla that has kept me is that the fact that there's there's a lot of different kind of types of adventures. You know what I mean? Like there's
They mix it up.
Yeah, they mix it up. There's a lot of different types of quests.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting because honestly, you're probably a couple hours into the game before the assassin part starts to really even take part. You're a Viking. Like it's way more you're a Viking than you're an assassin. Like the assassin stuff comes along.
That's kind of what I felt with Origins and Odyssey is that the Origins kind of still kept the assassin part of it, but Odyssey, I mean, you were more of a Greek warrior than an assassin.
Right. Valhalla, you're much more a Viking than anything else. And the assassination part and the Assassin's Creed part comes along, but it kind of comes slowly. And then so when you're at that point, like you can kind of choose what path you want to go down, and at any time you can change it. But it's like, okay, am I going to sort of like start hunting down people and being an assassin, or am I going to be a Viking and pillage towns and build up my town, or am I going to just go search for gold, or am I going to go search for mysteries, or am I going to, so there's, and you can do it at any time. Like you can just change it.
A non-linear open world.
Yeah, however you want to track whatever quests you want, because it's all open, so you can go wherever you want. But then you can also track quests. But the quests sort of they break down into different types of whether it's like a hunting quest, a adventuring quest, a Viking quest, an assassin quest. You know what I mean? And they're all running simultaneously, so you can kind of bounce between however you want.
This is maybe why I'm not totally sold in on Middle Earth Shadow of War is that I love Assassin's Creed, but I will play Assassin's Creed and I will do as many side quests as I can until the game almost forces you to get back into the main storyline. It's you can't do this side quest until you progress in the main storyline. And that's just kind of the style I've developed, because then you have a tendency of whenever you get back into the main storyline, you kind of kick everyone's ass.
Right. You've built up your character enough where you're not. Yeah.
Well, Assassin's Creed is definitely on a bell curve where it's hard, and now you kill everybody.
Right. So, yeah, I've gotten to the point now where like I run into like a town and they want you to sort of be stealthy, and I just murder everyone. Yeah. Like I can take out an entire. Although I have tried that a couple of times, because there's different areas of the map that are harder than others.
Yeah.
And so like I've gone into an area on the map where like I run into a town and there's like 50 archers, and it's like, okay, I'm not taking out this whole time. And then, and some of the dudes in there are way harder to kill. And it's like, okay, this is not. And like, that was the thing with like, I got to Asgard and I think I might have got there too soon, because I got to a point in the story in Asgard where I had to fight this wolf. I must have tried killing this thing.
Was it Fenris?
Like a dozen times, and I couldn't kill it. And I'm like, what? So I left and ended up doing a bunch of other stuff,
leveling up, and
then going back and finally being able to kill the thing, because I'm like, I can't kill it. I cannot kill this thing. There's no way. I tried and tried. I'm like, all right, I'm just getting frustrated. I'm not powerful enough to kill this thing.
That was the thing with. Well, I love that they've mixed that in, because they've been really good about doing that. In the like Origins was really kind of the relaunch of that franchise, where you had to fight these Egyptian gods and goddesses,
right.
Phoebus and Osiris and all that, and then the Greek mythological monsters of Medusa and the Centaur and Cyclops. And so I'm glad that they're keeping that, because I always thought that was kind of the funner, more interesting part of the game, is whenever you dropped into the kind of like magical mythological. Yeah. Did you do all of the DLCs for Odyssey?
No, I don't. I usually don't download
the DLCs were great.
Once I kind of go through, I think once I go through this if I get like finish this game, I may go back to Odyssey because I liked Odyssey and then I kind of stopped playing it.
It was.
I don't think I got far enough into Odyssey to really enjoy it enough.
Oh, I love it.
I really like this one a lot. I've really had fun with it so far. And like I said, dude, when I get to Asgard, I mean, at one point you're running on the Rainbow Bridge. There's a full war between the gods and the frost giants going on. And you're trying to get through it all. Like you're literally running, like trying to dodge, and then like Thor comes down and like lightning bolts and fucking blows up a whole thing of fucking giants, and then you're fighting these, these frost giants and shit. It's pretty cool. It's just like, okay,
I hate how expensive video games can be sometimes, but I mean, that was probably $60-$70.
I think it was 60, something like that.
So you're paying like 10, 12 cents an hour of entertainment.
Yeah, right. I mean, you get a lot. These games are so. I don't have a hard time playing or paying $60 for something that I'm going to spend 100 hours or more. Like I said, I've already put in almost 50 hours of the thing.
Yeah,
so it's like $1 an hour at this point. Like it's only getting cheaper. And I've had a ton of fun with it. So it's like usually what I try. It's like winter. I'm in the house a lot more. I'm not out doing as much. So it's like I buy a game and usually play a game during winter, and that's kind of my video game time.
Spring comes around, you're ready to get out and do stuff and won't.
Yeah.
But my point on Middle Earth: Shadow of War is that I think the problem is that I'm trying to play it like Assassin's Creed, where I'm doing all of these side missions and trying to, very Pokemon collect it all. I think it probably works better if you just try and play the main storyline and then do that other stuff if you just happen to be around it.
Right.
So I may just kind of start bulldozing through the main storyline.
Speaking of Lord of the Rings, I went back and rewatched Lord of the Rings, the first 2 movies so far.
I almost did that on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I started it that was around the time where I started watching it. I'm like, I haven't watched those in a long time. I'd really like to watch them again. And I got to say, they really fucking hold up well. Like they really are so well done.
Yeah.
I don't know that you could have done those movies any better than
Peter. 20 are they
20
going
years? 2002 was the first one. I think it's 2002, 2003, 2004, I believe.
They come out every Christmas. My dad and I would go see them every Christmas.
Yeah, and they're so good. They're so fucking good. Like it's just so amazingly well done. But it's funny that I'm watching the first one. I'm watching like a digital version of it, and I had paused it at one point, and I'm like, the length of the movie, it comes up the length of the movie, and it was like 3 hours and 45 minutes, and I'm like, okay, so this is the extended version or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so I get to the end of the movie, and there's still like 45 minutes left, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? So I start playing the credits, and it's just like 40 minutes of names.
Oh, of credits.
No, but it wasn't. They played the credits, but then it just started playing these names. Like it was just like row after row, like names. And I'm like,
those are all the orcs.
I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I looked it up. It was actually, it was like the names of the Lord of the Rings fan club members that he used to help. Like they helped with like research and information and stuff about them. So he had put in all their fucking names, every member of the official Lord of the Rings fan club.
That's cool.
But it's literally like 40 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
And like tightly packed names. I don't know how many thousands
of names.
Thousands and thousands. And I'm just like, holy shit. Who had to type that out?
Yeah.
Like, what poor fucker had to put that together,
Intern, unpaid intern.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was like, that's pretty cool. But yeah, man. So I haven't watched the third one yet, but I watched the first 2 and because they are fucking long.
Yeah.
But man, they hold up, and it's just the first scene in the first movie where Gandalf is is riding into the Shire on the wagon and the fire, and it's just like I had the exact same feel. I remember the exact same feeling I had when I first saw it, which was the exact same feeling I had when I first read that fucking book. And it's like he could not have captured it better. It's like it is so beautifully done. It is such the heart of that book, and it's just like he fucking nailed it. He just kills it with those movies. And all I could think was like, you know what? Thank you, Peter Jackson. Like for someone who is been a fan of those books, since I was a kid.
To bring it to life like he did, and the monumental task of planning that, because they filmed basically all three of them.
All three at the same time. It was the first time it had ever been done. They filmed all
monumental. The planning, the execution on that, the Herculean effort of getting that many people. So I think they employed half of New Zealand,
right?
Thousands and thousands of people, in New Zealand that were employed on those movie sets, because they were all over the country.
Yeah,
because that's
really cool. Like I said, for someone that I read those books, I think in junior high the first time. I remember.
I think we all did.
I think I still have. I'm pretty sure I stole the copies from my junior high library.
Oh, God.
And I think I still have the paperback copies from my junior high.
I read my dad.
It might have been grade school, actually. It might have been sixth grade. But
I read my dad's very dog-eared versions that he bought in college.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so he we're talking at that point, Led Zeppelin is doing, records based on, Tolkien stuff. So I think every
that's when they really, that's when they actually became popular. Like they weren't popular when they were published so much, but in the 60s and 70s. It has a very
graduated high school in 66. So
it has a very hippie aesthetic.
Oh yeah.
Nature and nature versus commerce and nature versus industrialism. Very much
Gandalf is basically a hippie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Gandalf's such a great character. My God, just watch it. And Ian McKellen just kills that role as Gandalf. But the thing I loved about that character is that he was so many things at once. Like he was the at times the doddering, absent-minded
grandfather type.
Yeah, and then at times he's this brilliant, wise, wizard, and then at times he's a badass,
wizard,
a fucking absolute badass. And it's just like, such a great character. But the way that he wrote that character of just like, he was a conundrum. Like you never quite were sure. Like, is he fucking mad? Is he crazy? Is he so old he doesn't remember things? Or is that all just part of the plan?
I always see it as that he was the war wizard. He knew what was going on in the world and the prices that people would have to pay. He took down a Balrog, for God's sake. But I think that like the Shire is what he wanted the world to be, and that's why he had such this soft spot for the hobbits. It's
for sure. I think that comes across, but more than that, it was like he hid it perfectly. Like he hid in Gandalf. He couldn't have him just be all knowing.
Mm-hmm.
At times he needed to be all knowing, to sort of keep the story going and give enough information and protect the hobbits enough, but he couldn't have him be that character all the time. And he does such a great job of like at times, getting rid of Gandalf, putting Gandalf in a situation when he's in prison, that kind of thing. and at times he can't remember, and but then you kind of are like, well, could he remember, but he just didn't want to because he needed the Hobbit, he needed Bilbo to figure or Frodo or to figure it out on his own. Was there a greater plan in place that he knew everything, but he couldn't, he needed them to become what they had the potential to become. And that was what was so beautiful, like how it was that character was so beautifully written, was that he was a facilitator of greatness. He needed these characters to be what they needed to become, and he knew that
from the reader perspective, if he was like this all-knowing, all-powerful, wizard, then you would never have really felt like the tide was always against them. I mean, that's
right.
Books is that you always felt like they were just one step ahead of being annihilated.
Yeah,
but
there were times where it was like, he takes down the Balrog, and it's like, well, fuck, he's this super powerful wizard, and it's like, well, he's not always. He can't always be that, and it's just so wonderfully done. And then I was also thinking, like, not to go off on like Lord of the Rings thing, but it's one of the few stories that I can think about that opens up so sad, like the party of with Bilbo leaving the Shire. Bilbo's retiring and he's leaving the Shire and he's leaving everything behind. It's really a sad opening. You know what I mean? Like it's very, it has this sort of like, it's the end of the Hobbit story, but that story hadn't even been written. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's this interesting like ending to something that hadn't been written yet.
Yeah. I have to see the publication dates.
I'm pretty sure Lord of the Rings was written first, and then he wrote The Hobbit after. I'm pretty sure. I could be mistaken.
I was, yeah. I don't know. But whatever. It's that they live on their own, and I think that was one of the great decisions that Peter Jackson or whoever the money was, is that they could do the Lord of the Rings without doing the Hobbit first.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Well, like, and it's one. I can't think of another movie that opens quite in that way, where it's like, this is an ending. You know what I mean? Like, this is the completion,
the ending of the prologue.
and it's just like, wow, that's a really interesting. And that's the way the book's written. The book's written that way, and it's just like, that's such an interesting setup. Is like, this is an end of this guy's story. Now it's Frodo's story.
Yeah. Now
I want to look that up now, because I always thought that Lord of the Rings was published before.
Yeah, and it may have been
The Hobbit. I thought.
Yeah, and I know the publication date is it 30s?
It could be before that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, talk about world building.
Oh God, yeah. To a fault. 1954 was Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
The Hobbit was 1937. So no, he wrote Hobbit way before. Okay, I was wrong. Yeah. For some reason, I had always thought that he had wrote Lord of the Rings.
Wrote the prologue as
okay.
So, I knew it was in the 30s, and I didn't know it was that long between the Hobbit and.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. 1937 was The Hobbit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess that makes more sense though. But it's just like watching it that way, where that movie, starts with the ending, and you haven't even unless you read The Hobbit, you have no idea which
this guy.
I mean,
who's this?
But it works regardless. You know what I mean? Like, you understand everything you need to understand about Bilbo. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know any more than what they tell you.
Yeah, it's hard because I grew up with those characters basically.
Yeah,
knew that. From the bad animated, stuff.
Bad? What are you talking about?
That was awesome.
The rotoscope animation. The rotoscope animation.
Was that the Two Towers?
I think so. Yeah.
That was awesome. It was what's his name? Baskey, right?
I don't know.
That stuff was awesome. That was dark and crazy, but like the Return of the King, not so good. Not good.
Well, we're living in a golden age of all that stuff now.
Isn't it crazy? Which we didn't. We're going to talk about the New Mutants movie next week.
Right.
But we texted about it today. I just want a magic movie because she's awesome, and we're getting into the Queen's Gambit. I didn't even know it was the same actress. That's how dense I am.
I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I watched the Queen's Gambit before I watched the New Mutants, and I'm like, oh, I really like this actress. I don't know who she is.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that she played Magic. I started watching that movie, and I'm like, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, is that the same? And then I looked it up. I'm like, oh, okay, it is the same actress from Queen's Gambit. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah,
she's great. I mean, she nails the character, and I couldn't believe they pulled off the dragon. The fucking what's
the bear?
No, the dragon. Her dragon. What's
Lockheed?
Yeah, Lockheed. I couldn't remember his name. It's like they pulled that off so well. But no, she looked amazing. She looked perfect.
She looked amazing, and she looked perfect.
Yeah. No, I really like. Well, we'll talk about it next week. But I really liked it. I don't know that it did that well. But
I think it was one of those movies that kind of got cursed.
It took so long for it to come out, and there was so much, anticipation, and then it sort of like just
kept getting postponed and backburnered, and then COVID and all that. But I think it'll fall into the lexicon of pretty good movies that kind of got a bad rap before they ever hit.
It's definitely better. It's better than like the last 3 X-Men movies that came out.
Yeah, it's way better than Dark Phoenix.
Way better than Dark Phoenix. Better than Apocalypse Warb. Those.
Which is funny because they both had Game of Thrones sisters.
Yeah. Did you hear? What's his name? Dinklage is starring in the
Toxic Avenger.
Yeah. She's like, okay, that's
go make some money, bud.
Yeah, I'm just interested in like I'm not that like shocked that he would do that because he's got a pretty good sense of humor and he's done some off the wall movies, but
One Up.
Yeah. But I'm just like, what are they gonna do with the Toxic Avenger? I mean, it's so politically incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the point of it is to be politically incorrect. The guy, I can't think of the guy's name behind that whole
the comic.
No, the movies.
Yeah. Well, sorry, that was a comic. So it was.
Yeah, but the guy who made the movies is like a schlock movie. I mean, he's. If you follow his Twitter, like it's usually 3 or 4 times a day, it's like some kind of skanky looking chick in a bikini is what he's reposting. It is exactly what you would think the guy who makes the Toxic Avenger movies. I have to say I was a fan of the movies as a youth. But I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with that. Like, are they going to take it serious?
No,
they can't.
You can't take the Toxic Avenger serious.
But how do you you can't?
Yeah,
there's no fucking way you make it anything like the original ones were made. Really, like they were all. All I can think of is like, have you watched Always Sunny in Philadelphia, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Did you see the episode the gang goes skiing?
No, not yet.
Oh god, it's hilarious, but it's also it's basically. Do you remember the movie? It was an 80s movie called Ski Patrol.
Yes.
Okay, so
yeah.
This episode is basically a takeoff of Ski Patrol, including the guy who was the main actor in Ski Patrol is in the episode as basically the same character.
That's awesome.
But the whole thing, I mean, the way they tear it apart,
yeah,
it makes you like I mean, it makes you look at that, go, oh yeah, that was a really, really like wrong movie. Like it's really, it's really.
Go back and watch the movies like Tom Hanks and Bachelor Party.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Jesus, what was
anything in the 80s?
Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, for sure. They're all horrible. They're all awful. But that's what I mean. Like, how do you remake Bachelor Party in this day and age?
You don't.
I mean, I guess they did with The Hangover, right? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So could you do the same sort of thing? I don't know. Can you be? I just don't know how irreverent can you be anymore.
Well, I mean, you can raunchy humor. It's like I watched Bridesmaids the other day. So I mean, you can have raunch humor without being,
rapey. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's just more self-deprecating. Yeah,
I'm interested in like, I'm like, okay, Peter Dinklage in a Toxic Avenger remake. Okay, I'm interested. I'm definitely interested.
Weirder things. All right, bud. Well, so we've got some New Mutants talk next week. We're going to be talking about Checkmate and Shazam and Mage.
Yes.
Don't forget to check out our Trade Talks pick, which is the volume 1 of Transmetropolitan. So that's a nice revisit for all of us. Sal started up an Amazon Trade Talks store. Yes,
not a store. It's a book club.
Book club.
I mean, you don't have to buy anything. It's free. Yep. If you're an Amazon member, you can join it. Just search. There's a long link. I've tweeted the link. I put it on Facebook, so it's on there. And it's basically, if you're an Amazon member, you can join the book club. And then it'll tell you what book we're currently reading. It'll show you the books that we read in the past. Yep. And you can also suggest books for us to pick for the book club. So yeah, it's a free thing. You can buy the books through Amazon if you choose, but you can join the book club with just an Amazon account. So there's no charge or anything to it.
Nice. I've already got my next one picked out. I think it's my pick next. So
yeah, it's yours. You're next.
Yep. I'm excited, and it's actually something that you turned me on to. So check that out. You can contact the show by emailing us at info@aroundcomics.com. You can check us out on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Twitters, and still working on that TikTok.
I'm not even going to respond to that any longer.
I know. It's an old bad joke. So anyway, I think Sal mentioned at the top, if you're watching this live, thank you. That's awesome. You're always welcome to interact with us. We record at 8:00 Central Standard Time on Tuesday evenings now. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, thank you. It is also available as an audio podcast at all your favorite podcast catchers. So whichever way you want to consume it is cool with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and hello to all of our Indian listeners that we've gotten recently. I don't know what you guys are listening to out there in India, but thanks for listening. We've had a big jump of listeners from India. So I don't know if like podcasts are just hitting India or comic books just becoming a thing. I have no idea. It's just oddly. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of listeners from India. So hello.
Comics huge in India.
We're huge in India and Australia. Anything with an A. Austria.
We're going
Alaska
alphabetically.
Maybe. Well,
it's a terrible marketing strategy. All right, bud. So that's a little bit to look forward to in the next episode. The meantime,
in between time,
we're going to be everywhere in
around comics.
Hopefully, Tom will charge his laptop.
Hopefully.